What if the biggest enemy you ever face isn't outside you, but within? It's not the critic, not the competition, not even the circumstances. It's something invisible, insidious, and endlessly patient, a force that rises the moment you try to improve, create, or change your life. Stephen Pressfield calls it resistance. And in his powerful book, The War of Art, he teaches us how to recognize it, confront it, and ultimately defeat it. Because creativity isn't just about art. It's about becoming who you were meant to be. Book 1. Defining the Enemy, Resistance. Pressfield begins by striking a deep chord. Within every one of us, there exists two lives, the life we live and the life we are capable of living. Between the two stands a single, relentless force he calls resistance. This isn't an external enemy, not something we can see or blame. It's the silent assassin of potential, the invisible wall between what we are and what we could become. He explains that resistance appears the moment we attempt to move from a lower state to a higher one, from comfort to challenge, from dreaming to doing. It's the force that stops a writer from writing, an entrepreneur from launching, or an athlete from training. It's what whispers, "You can start tomorrow," or "You're not ready yet." And because it's internal, we can't run from it. We carry it with us. Resistance, Pressfield says, is universal. No one is immune. Every creative soul, every person who's ever tried to change or improve their life, has felt its pull. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't talent or luck. It's how they respond to this invisible adversary. But resistance is cunning. It doesn't roar, it whispers. It disguises itself as rational thought, disguised as self-care, practicality, or even humility. It tells you you're tired, that you deserve a break, that your idea isn't good enough yet. It might even disguise itself as being busy, cleaning, researching, planning, anything but doing the actual work. It's a shapeshifter, and its only goal is to keep you from acting. Pressfield describes resistance as invisible. You can't see it, touch it, or hear it, but you can feel it. It's that sinking heaviness in your chest when you sit down to start, that sudden urge to check your phone, make coffee, or rearrange your desk. It's a repelling force, negative and powerful, radiating from every working potential. He also warns that resistance is internal. We love to believe the obstacles are external, our family, our job, the economy, but they're not. The battle isn't out there, it's in here. Resistance lives inside our own minds, and it feeds off our fear. It's insidious too. It will tell you anything to make you stop. It will flatter you, bribe you, or terrify you. It can sound like logic or like love, but every word it speaks is a lie. Resistance has no conscience. It's a pure, destructive force, as ruthless and emotionless as gravity. And yet, resistance is also impersonal. It's not out to destroy you personally. It doesn't know your name. It's simply a law of nature, the shadow that appears the moment light shines. When we aim to evolve, resistance responds. That's just how the universe balances itself. Here's the paradox. Resistance isn't fallible. It always points toward the very thing we most need to do. The greater the resistance, the more important that project, goal, or calling is to our soul's growth. So rather than fleeing from it, we can use it as a compass. The thing we resist the most is usually the thing we were born to do. Pressfield reminds us, resistance never sleeps. It doesn't weaken with time. Even the greats feel it. Henry Fonda, at 75, still threw up before every stage performance. Fear doesn't vanish. We just get better at moving through it. Resistance plays for keeps. It's not satisfied with a small win. It aims to annihilate your creative spirit. Its goal is to prevent you from becoming who you are meant to be. That's why giving into it, even once, is dangerous. It strengthens the habit of surrender. And resistance feeds on fear. The more afraid you are of something, the more certain you can be that it matters. The fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. All these are just resistance in disguise. The cure is simple but brutal. Feel the fear and do it anyway. He explains how resistance becomes most powerful right at the finish line. When you're closest to success, that's when it hits hardest. Like Odysseus, almost home before a final storm blows him back to sea, creators often self-sabotage just before completion, quitting, doubting, or panicking when victory is in sight. That's resistance's last stand, its desperate effort to stop you from crossing over. Resistance also recruits allies. It hides behind relationships, friends, family, or colleagues who unconsciously reinforce your self-doubt. When you start changing, others may feel threatened. They may criticize, guilt trip, or pull you back, not out of malice, but because your growth reminds them of their own stagnation. Pressfield warns, once you make your break, don't turn back. You can't carry everyone with you. The best way to help others is to become an example yourself. He dissects how resistance manifests in everyday behavior: procrastination, self-doubt, drama, even illness. Trouble, he says, is a cheap form of fame. People create chaos to avoid the emptiness of not doing their work. Likewise, self-dramatization and victimhood are forms of resistance. When we define ourselves by our problems, we avoid responsibility for our potential. Even self-medication, Pressfield claims, is resistance in disguise. Depression, anxiety, addiction, sometimes they're real conditions, but often they're masks for the pain of an unlived life. Instead of facing our calling, we numb it with distractions, substances, or endless self-analysis. One of resistance's most seductive forms is rationalization. It gives us logical-sounding reasons for not doing the work, reasons that even seem true. We convince ourselves we're waiting for the right time, that our idea isn't ready, or that life's too busy right now. But Pressfield demolishes those excuses with one sharp example. Tolstoy had 13 kids and still wrote War and Peace. The truth is, there's no perfect time. There's only now. Resistance thrives in unhappiness. When we feel restless, guilty, or bored, it's often a sign that we're not doing our work. Consumer culture feeds off this misery, selling us distractions in place of meaning. But fulfillment can't be bought. It must be earned through creation. Pressfield even ties resistance to fundamentalism, the urge to retreat into rigid beliefs instead of facing creative uncertainty. The artist moves forward into the unknown. The fundamentalist retreats into the familiar. One creates, the other destroys. Ultimately, Pressfield offers a brutal but liberating truth: resistance can be beaten. Every great work of art, every invention, every act of courage exists because someone faced it and refused to give in. The war against resistance never ends, but victory comes one day at a time. Each time you sit down, ignore the fear, and simply do your work. Book 1 of The War of Art leaves us with a clear vision. The enemy isn't the world, the critics, or even time. It's the voice in our own head that says, "Not today." And the only way to silence it is to act anyway. To pick up the pen, step on the stage, sit at the desk, and begin. Book 2, Turning Pro, Combating Resistance. After exposing the invisible enemy that sabotages us, Pressfield turns to the antidote, the act of turning pro. The moment an amateur decides to become a professional marks a transformation as profound as any spiritual awakening. It's not about earning money. It's about committing your life to the work, to mastery, and to showing up no matter what. The amateur, he explains, plays for fun. They dabble, they experiment, but when pressure builds or results slow, they quit. The professional, however, doesn't have that luxury. The professional shows up because it's who they are. They understand that resistance will always be waiting, so they meet it with consistency, not emotion. To Pressfield, turning pro is the dividing line between a life of potential and a life of purpose. The pro doesn't wait for inspiration. They create the conditions for it. Somerset Maugham once said, "I write only when inspiration strikes." Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp. That, Pressfield insists, is the mindset of a professional. Routine invites the muse. Professionals separate themselves from their work emotionally. They don't identify their worth with its success or failure. They show up to the desk, to the field, or to the stage every single day, whether they feel like it or not. They've learned to respect the process more than the product. He gives us a glimpse of a typical professional's day. The morning often starts with discomfort, fear, restlessness, self-doubt. But the professional understands that these feelings are simply resistance in disguise. So they sit down and begin. They don't wait to be fearless. They act despite fear. Fear never goes away, but discipline grows stronger. One of the greatest lessons in this section is the principle of priority. It's simple. Know the difference between what is urgent and what is important, and always do what's important first. The pro doesn't let trivial distractions steal time from the work that truly matters. They understand that doing the work comes before comfort, entertainment, or even self-validation. Pressfield draws from his own failures to illustrate this truth. He recounts the humiliation of seeing one of his screenplays, after years of struggle, turn into a critical flop. Yet, in that failure, he recognized something profound. Despite the pain, he didn't quit. And that, he realized, was the moment he became a professional. Success didn't define him, commitment did. The professional, he says, has mastered the art of being miserable. They accept that pain, boredom, and frustration are part of the job. Like a Marine enduring boot camp, they know discomfort is the cost of evolution. Resistance can't be defeated by avoidance. It's conquered through endurance. Pressfield outlines the qualities of a professional mindset. They show up every day. No excuses, no negotiations. They do the work whether inspired or not. They stay on the job all day. The body stays in the chair until the day's quota is done. They are committed over the long haul. The pro doesn't chase quick wins. They build legacy through consistency. They master their craft. The pro studies, practices, and refines continuously. They accept feedback from the real world. They're not seeking compliments. They're seeking growth. They don't over-identify with their work. Failure doesn't destroy them, and success doesn't inflate them. These qualities separate those who dream from those who deliver. Turning pro also means playing for love, not for approval. The pro may get paid, but money isn't their motivation. It's their side effect. They work because they're called to. They know that true satisfaction doesn't come from applause, but from having done the work honestly and completely. Patience is another hallmark of the professional. Resistance loves to use impatience as a weapon. It tells us that progress should be quick, that if we're not seeing results now, we should give up. The pro knows that great work takes time. They play the long game. They understand that mastery is a marathon, not a sprint. The professional also seeks order. Chaos in the workspace breeds chaos in the mind. Pressfield recalls how, when he lived in his van, he couldn't write amidst the clutter. The pro clears space, physically and mentally, for the muse to enter. Perhaps one of the most liberating truths in this section is this. The professional demystifies their work. They don't romanticize creativity as some magical gift that appears out of nowhere. They see it as craft. They focus on the how, not the why. They don't wait for inspiration. They work until it arrives. Fear, too, is redefined. The amateur believes they must overcome fear before acting. The pro knows fear is permanent and irrelevant. Courage, therefore, isn't the absence of fear, but persistence in its presence. Turning pro is an act of rebellion against resistance itself. It's the daily declaration that no matter how loud the voice of fear becomes, the work will be done. The professional has learned that when they honor their craft, the gods of creativity honor them back. Book 3, Beyond Resistance, the Higher Realm. In the final section, Pressfield lifts the curtain on something mystical. The higher realm, the source of inspiration and genius that all great creators tap into once they've gone to war with resistance and emerged disciplined. When we sit down to work, he says, unseen forces begin to move. Power concentrates around us. Ideas appear. Coincidences unfold. It's as if the universe notices our commitment and conspires to help. Ancient Greeks called this force the muse. Others might call it intuition, flow, or divine inspiration. Whatever name you give it, it only visits those who have earned it through labor. Pressfield believes this isn't superstition, it's a natural law. When we align our actions with our purpose, inspiration responds. The act of doing the work is an invocation, a ritual that invites the higher realm to participate. He emphasizes that this connection doesn't come to the amateur. The amateur waits for the muse to strike before acting. The professional acts first. They build the altar, the desk, the studio, the practice space, and begin their daily offering. And in time, the muse appears. The pro treats this relationship with reverence. They know their creative gift isn't entirely their own. It's borrowed from something greater. That's why humility is essential. Pride blocks the flow of inspiration. Gratitude keeps it alive. Pressfield draws a profound distinction between ego and soul. The ego creates for recognition. The soul creates for expression. When we create from ego, we serve ourselves. When we create from soul, we serve others. And in doing so, we touch something eternal. He explains that the higher realm is not a place of fantasy, but of clarity. It's the space where the mind quiets and the work takes over. Athletes call it being in the zone. Musicians call it flow. In these moments, time disappears, and something larger than ourselves takes control. But this connection comes with responsibility. We must show up as vessels worthy of the gift. The muse will not come to the unprepared, to those who waste time or treat creation casually. She comes to the warrior, the one who shows up daily, disciplined and humble, ready to serve. Pressfield calls this sacred exchange the moment when work becomes prayer. Every sentence written, every brushstroke, every note played is a way of saying thank you to the divine. When we create, we participate in the act of creation itself. We mirror the divine impulse that brought the universe into being. He concludes by reminding us that the war never truly ends. Resistance will rise again tomorrow, whispering new lies, sowing new fears. But the professional, armed with discipline, faith, and purpose, knows how to answer. They return to the work, because in the end, the battle against resistance isn't just about making art. It's about becoming who we truly are. Each act of creation, each moment of courage, each refusal to quit brings us closer to that divine spark within us. And when we fight that war every day, we don't just create better work, we create a better self. Pressfield leaves us with this enduring truth. The muse favors those who fight. The gods will lend their power to those who labor faithfully. And when inspiration finally arrives, it will not find us idle. It will find us working. Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art isn't just about writing or painting. It's about life itself. It's a manifesto for anyone who's ever dreamed of something more but felt held back by invisible chains. The war within us is the price of becoming our truest selves. And the moment we face resistance, we step into our power.